Pokémon used to feel magical, like you were stepping into a world that actually existed when you turned your console off. But somewhere between Sinnoh's snowstorms and Paldea's invisible walls, that magic started slipping. Today we're talking about the mid-era glory of Generation 4 and 5, why they still hold up, and what went wrong with modern Pokémon on the Switch. I played Pokémon Platinum as well as Pokémon Black and White during an extremely stressful and transformative period of my life. My endeavours with the game began as my A-level exams began, the most important exams of my life. Procrastination took hold and I was hooked. Each battle, each evolution and each new town was a spike of excitement that waved through me. Pokémon took a hold on me that hasn't been there since I was 8 years old playing X and Y on my Nintendo 3DS. I got home, I wanted to play. I got home, I wanted to train my Snivy. Yes, I picked Snivy. This grab on my psyche proved to me that these games were special, that they were magic. And I was missing this in my life still. It was something that hadn't been grabbed on me since the likes of Destiny 1, Destiny 2 at the beginning during Forsaken. Although these games were still so grasping on me, and on me as a person, I know Gen 4 and 5 weren't perfect. Platinum's pacing was kind of iffy, I was very bored in some moments, but they still had something that made them feel alive. Sinnoh's ancient myths were extremely cool, and the legendaries were a part of the DNA, and that made me so intrigued when exploring. And Unova cities were amazing, the music was obviously perfect, and Team Plasma was incredible. It was a great team that felt present, and it was throughout all the cities of the game, and it was woven into the story. Sprites, they're entirely full of personality. Obviously back then there's less Pokemon sprites they had to make compared to the 1000 now, but still, the Pokemon moved like they had pulses. There was no 1000-yard stares you get today. There was no Xerneas Tackle Z move, and the Pokemon felt real. They felt like this is the move they'd actually make. Pokemon like Lucario in Black and White 2, with his match-ready stance, it feels like that's how he would represent himself. Zekrom's Fusion Bolt animation was amazing when I finally caught him in the original Black and White. That's the experience that you get when you play these games. You feel like you're in the world of Pokemon. You don't feel like you're in a video game because everything has individuality.
Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god! What is that?
I love to contrast this experience with Gen 4 and 5 with some aspects of the 3DS era and mainly the Switch era. It was obviously a change we all dreamed of going into 3D, especially when I played it when I was around 15, 16. What we got in these new generational leap was just a mountain of aggressive issues. It made it feel like these new games didn't care for polish. It was an unknown concept, or Game Freak just generally didn't care to make the games as perfect as they used to. The biggest culprit was Scarlet and Violet. It was attempting something new with this full open world exploration. You can see absolutely everything, but it ended in the games overextending themselves, and there was no polish. The games felt broken, the games were laggy, and it created severe issues and animosity in the Pokemon fanbase, who have had this pride in the fact that their games are almost perfect, very polished, and there's a lot of effort put into them. As previously mentioned, Pokemon Gen 4 and 5 have this sense of battle against a greater force. It's an underdog story, a reimagining of David and Goliath. These games are battles for the world, and the standard of stories were amazing. There was clear motivations that were convincing and understandable. Being a pure villain was allowed. People could be a blanket bad, but characters such as N could also exist. Complexity was there, and Game Freak seems to have forgotten that this was possible. Modern games base themselves on half-strong reasoning. Characters such as Lysander are just swiftly introduced halfway through the game, dealt with within 3 gyms, whilst characters such as N are introduced from the beginning of the game. They're embedded in everything that occurs within the game, and their influence is felt because of that. whilst the story was very half-baked. The presentation, not as much. The introduction of Eternatus was amazing when I played it, and introducing the ultimate weapon, even as a kid and now, feels like something truly impactful has happened, like Lysander's plan is going through, and you're rushing to stop him. But the game lacks depth in those moments. It introduces Z, who's an integral character to the story, just at the end. It's a flash in the pan backstory. There's no run-up. Whilst in Black and White, you knew Team Plasma was going to have an effect. And when they appear at the Elite Four, their consistent appearances allows this kind of influence on the narrative to make sense and be cohesive. Game Freak's success in its adversaries is clearly linked to having consistency and presence throughout the entire narrative, and that's why the modern games struggle. They introduce last minute villains too often, and it's created issues and it's created narratives that don't last long and don't feel strong compared to the older games like Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5. Older Pokemon games, they didn't give you space, they gave you reasons to explore. Sinnoh's snow routes were amazing. Unova's strange house was very cool. The post-game battle subway was also amazing. There was personality in every corner. Now there's massive towns, loads of locked doors however, NPCs that repeat the same line, shops that are just menus that you can't even enter, unlike the previous games. And because of this, the new games lack the personal touch in their adventures found in older games. There's no strolling and finding a Volcarona, a shiny Gyarados, or shiny Haxorus that felt so special when you was playing the last games. Those games gave a rewarded experience. It felt like it had a planned course for the player to find, but they didn't have to. Whilst modern games leave cryptic and impossible tasks, like Cofagrigus in Sword and Shield. Gen 4 and 5 were a splash of happiness and achievement in a period of stress for me, whilst Gen 8 and 9 was a task list, a game tied with Google and Bulbapedia. The problem with these issues in the game now is I don't want to hate modern Pokemon, but I want to be able to play new, innovative titles that have the spark that I get out of the older games as well. I want the sense that I'm in a world that's outside of me, that I'm a trainer that's come into a breathing place, and I get rewarded for being curious, I get rewarded for exploring, but I still have difficulty, I still have a challenge, and now it's just, you get rewarded for doing anything. There's no struggle in finding anything that helps you progress through the game. Your Pokemon, you can use one throughout the entire game, and you still have a full evolved team. Even though I played the past games well past their expiration date, the games are still so magical. They still have the flair that clicked with so many fans, and clicked with me personally. The reasons the game remains so popular, and have passed on to generations, is this standard they set. But the shame of the whole situation is that the legacy is being tarnished, and the games are now rotted to a state without polish, without intrigue, and exploration is no longer prioritised. Now I'm going to take you through a thought experiment. Imagine Sinnoh's set pieces, with Unova's storyline, and the character focus, and Gen 3's legendary ensemble. Is that a game you'd want to play? The fact Pokemon has missed the mark, failing to live up to its previous heights in any meaningful way in each of those categories, is why there is so much fatigue with each game, and why the narratives fail, why its presentation fails. It feels worse in every single sense, bar the competitive play, and it's why the mainstream hype for the actual game and the narrative has started to fall apart. Now I know this is all a very personal video, and I want to ask the question to you, do you think Pokemon has lost its magic? Am I older? Do I just prefer the nostalgia of the older games? The 2D era of Pokemon? Do I prefer the fact that it feels like I'm playing an old game? Drop your thoughts below, and if you're still out there grinding Battle Subway runs in 2025, I see you, and I respect you.